Hi, I'm Victor van Dijk, and I've been the CFO of Fastned since 2019. And I joined Fastned then because I wanted to contribute to the energy transition, and I really liked the way that Fastned had set up its business, and was convinced that Fastned would really be an important driver of the energy transition. So our team today has talked a lot about our business case, how we're going to grow, and how we will drive the energy transition. But how does it translate into financials? Well, let me take you through it. And I'll start with some key metrics. Currently, we have 207 stations operational. We have grown the network by close to 40% on average over the last 6 years. Obviously, a key driver to overall revenue growth. Revenues per station have grown at more than 90% on average over the last 6 years. Each station, when it's added to the network, quickly ramps up sales to its current revenue potential. Then its revenues grow further based on more and more electric vehicles on the road, doing more and more fast charging. Overall, network growth and revenues per station growth translates into very fast overall revenue growth. Revenues related to charging doubled from 2020 to 2021 and already doubled again in the first quarter of this year. Then on operational EBITDA. This has even faster growth potential than revenues due to currently spare capacity and due to increasing charge speeds. With increasing charge speeds, we can deliver more kilowatt hours in the same amount of time. This means that operational EBITDA will normally outgrow revenue growth, which will quickly accelerate our profitability. And we'll get to that later. So we've been doubling sales year on year. Then the question is, what is the revenue potential going forward? And what are the key drivers? Well, this is how we think you should look at it. In the first bar on the left side of the graph, you see our 2021 revenue. The second bar is illustrating the electric vehicle fleet growth that is expected to be realized this decade. This is expected to 10 to 20-fold from current levels. So that is a 1,000% to 2,000% increase. All those cars will need charging, and part of that charging will be fast charging. And that fast charging share will actually increase 2 to 4-fold, as researchers have forecasted. And Michiel talked about it. This is driven by later EV adopters having less ability to charge at home, and fast charging becoming more and more convenient. The consequence is that the addressable market for Fastned is growing very, very strongly. And to be able to capture this market growth, we firmly believe that you need to have the right locations. High traffic, visible, scalable, and with long-term contracts. As Michiel and Sarah have explained, we see a clear potential for growing to 1,000 stations, 5-fold our current number. And the revenue potential for Fastned that we foresee is the multiplication of each of these drivers. More electric vehicles, more often choosing to charge quickly on the go, and more Fastned stations welcoming these electric drivers. And this leads to a very high revenue potential. Now, I think most people see the growth of electric vehicles. But I can imagine you think, will fast charging indeed grow versus other means of charging? And will high traffic locations indeed capture that growth? Well, let's look at some data. And we can draw some lessons from the Netherlands, as it is the most advanced charging market in Europe, with the most chargers per electric vehicle available, and with probably the largest public slow charging network in Europe, and with a countrywide fast charging network. Hardly any country has both. And Fastned has operated the largest fast charging network in the Netherlands for years, so that we have a lot of data. Now, from our data over the years, we see that the fast charging share has indeed grown. In the graphs, you see the electric vehicle fleet in the Netherlands in black, having grown from a small number to hundreds of thousands of electric vehicles on the roads by now. And in yellow, you see Fastned revenues in the Netherlands growing faster than the growth in electric vehicles. This means that those electric vehicles fast charge more and more. And again, this is because newer adopters have less ability to charge at home, and because fast charging is becoming increasingly convenient because of higher charge speeds and more availability of fast charging. And all these factors will become increasingly pronounced in the coming years, driving further fast charging share growth. Then the question is, where do these electric vehicles fast charge? And we firmly believe that people want to charge where they drive, because it's simply convenient. It's the same reason as why petrol stations on motorways sell way more volume than petrol stations off motorways or in villages. Again, let's look at some data. If we look at fast charging locations in the Netherlands, the top right pie chart, Fastned operates about 130 stations, about 20 to 25% of the total fast charging locations in the Netherlands. Then there are also others that operate fast charging stations, either off motorway, at hotel locations, at McDonald's locations, or at petrol stations, on and off motorway. So Fastned has 20 to 25% of the fast charging locations, but we actually do more than 60% of the fast charging volume in the Netherlands. This means that Fastned locations do around 5 times more sales than the average locations of others. And this is to a very large extent driven by the fact that we operate the highest traffic locations in the Netherlands, which are the Dutch motorways. With our canopies, we are visible to millions of drivers passing by 130 stations each day. And we are very easy to reach. Of course, we also offer an outstanding charging experience, as my colleagues have previously explained today, which enables and amplifies sales. So people want to charge where they drive. That is why we firmly believe that you need high traffic locations with visible stations and a great concept to capture this market. So how does this all translate into station sales? Station sales are driven by electric vehicles driving by. The Dutch stations in our network have on average more than 30,000 cars driving by each day. In 2014, 0.1% of those cars were fully electric. So about 30 cars, 30, electric vehicles driving by each day. And about 5% stopped and charged, leading to 1 to 2 sessions a day. So what we have seen is that more and more cars became fully electric, and still about 5% stop and charge. So the number of cars charging per day went up accordingly. And we were at 22 sessions per station per day in 2021, 10 times more in a corona year. By 2030, 20% of those 30,000 cars should be fully electric. So 6,000 cars, electric vehicles driving by each day. And with similar capture rates, that leads to 250 to 300 sessions a day. Again, more than 10 times more than last year. For 250 to 300 sessions a day, you need an 8 to 10 charger station, which is running at a very high utilization rate. So we are convinced the demand will be there. So where does this lead us in terms of profitability at station level? When looking at the station economics, we clearly see the effect of demand growth. Annualized revenues per station for Q1 2022 were at around 120,000 euros for the average station, and at around 360,000 euros for a top 5 station. Also here you see that station sales are driven by electric vehicle traffic. Our top 5 station has 3 times more general traffic, meaning that it has 3 times more electric vehicles driving by, meaning that it has 3 times more sales than our average station. Then looking at profitability. This top 5 station has an operational EBITDA margin of close to 40% due to a higher utilization. So our top 5 station actually shows the potential for our average station at 3 times more electric vehicle penetration, which is expected by 2025. Note that increased session sizes due to increased charge speeds will increase this potential further. So with revenues going up, driven by electric vehicle growth and larger charging sessions, we expect all of our stations to show similar numbers in the not too distant future. And we'll get to that later. So what is the long-term potential? We think our stations should be able to do more than €1 million revenues by 2030. And looking at these numbers, to us it's very clear that the potential is there. In the first quarter, around 2% of the vehicles on the road were fully electric in our markets. By 2030, this should be around 10 times higher. This tenfold increase should directly drive station revenues, which are currently already above €100,000 annualized. And just quickly looking at this forecast from Dutch research agency TNO. They were commissioned by the Dutch government to assess fast charging demand on the Dutch motorway service areas for planning purposes. And with a 20% fleet penetration by 2030, they forecast 2.5 gigawatt hours fast charging demand on average across the Dutch motorway service areas. This amount is in line with more than €1 million revenues per station. They note that operating costs and investments of a station are driven by the number of chargers, and the number of chargers does not grow as much as revenues due to spare capacity and increasing charge speeds. Also quickly on electricity prices. They have obviously increased substantially over the last quarters, and we have responded by increasing our pricing. We saw little to no effect on our sales, proving we have pricing power. Going forward, we can and will adapt pricing further if need be. So where does this lead us in terms of financial results going forward? And let me break down the main components of the P&L, cash flow and their drivers for you. And please bear with me. Revenues going forward will be driven by the number of stations and the revenues per station. We will provide guidance on that later on. As explained, revenues per station will be mainly driven by the general traffic on the locations we secure, the electric vehicle fleet penetration development, and session size and charge speed developments. Gross margin we expect to improve over the medium term, based on an expected decrease in electricity prices and an expectation of a shortage of fast charging capacity at the right locations, that is. Network operation costs are driven by the number of chargers per station, which will grow less than the revenues, as we have spare capacity and charge speeds will increase. This means operational EBITDA will normally grow faster than revenues. Network expansion costs relate to the people signing new locations, designing them and building them. They create a lot of value by securing very valuable locations. We expect these costs to be relatively stable on a per station built per year basis, with a level of 154,000 per station built in 2021. CapEx is obviously driven by the number of stations built per year, but also by the size of the stations. We are now building bigger stations to cater for increasing demand, with 6 to 8 chargers per station on average in the current budget, leading to a CapEx per station of 750 to 800,000. With a cash level of 128 million per year in 2021, we are able to grow the number of stations operational to around 300 stations, 50% more than we currently have. We aim to build more than 400 stations before the year end 2024. And we'll get to that. And we expect a 50 to 75 million euro funding need for that. That concludes my presentation, and Michiel will join me for future guidance and wrap up. Thank you.